Nestled in the southern portion of historic Marion County lies the Jewel of Pearl River, the notable John Ford home. Chris Watts, local historian, author, and museum curator, describes the Ford home as being a historical onion. He says you peel one layer to find yet another interesting historical fact. The John Ford home remains the oldest home still standing today in the Pearl River Valley. It is recognized by the National Register of Historic Places as an example of an elevated frontier-style structure that was common at the time in the Mississippi Valley. It is one of the last remnants of territorial Mississippi architecture. Built in 1809 by pioneering minister Reverend John Ford, the house was constructed using materials found on site. To understand the home, you must first understand its owners. The Reverend John Ford was a Methodist preacher from the Carolinas. He and his wife decided to make their home in what is now known as Sandy Hook. He was a cotton planter, a political leader. He operated a plantation, a mill, and a ferry on the Pearl River. It is believed that he traded with local Native Americans extensively. During the Great Mississippi Panic, around the time of the War of 1812, a palisade wall or stockade was constructed which enclosed the house and numerous outbuildings. The Ford home became referred to as Ford's Fort. The reason for the wall was an emergency protection barrier from hostile tribesmen. Around this time, legend claims that a Native American called Tallapoosa came to the Ford house to warn the inhabitants of pending doom from his fellow tribesmen. In an effort to protect the rogue Native American from his clansmen, Ford hid him in the attic in a small enclosed closet and saved his life. Reverend Ford and his wife made it a mission to open their home up to visitors and travelers making their way through the area. Most notable guest was General Andrew Jackson. In 1814, on his way to the Battle of New Orleans, General Andrew Jackson, his staff, and his troops took refuge at the house. The bedroom used by Jackson, and most specifically the bed, is still on display today. Reverend Ford was a leader in the Methodist Church and held 2 Mississippi Methodist conferences at his home in 1814 and 1818. During the 1818 conference, it was decided that one of Ford's sons would be sent to form a new church further north. This church he formed became the first church formed in Jackson, Mississippi. Reverend Ford was well established as a political leader. He was one of the commissioners to help locate the site for the Marion County Courthouse. In 1816, Ford held yet another important meeting. The Pearl River Convention for Statehood was held at the John Ford home, and chosen prominent men from across the territory met to discuss issues of statehood as well as the division of Mississippi and Alabama. In August of 1817, John Ford was one of 45 delegates to sign the 1817 Mississippi State Constitution, establishing Mississippi as a state. By the Civil War era, the John Ford home was in possession of the William M. Rankin family. On December the 3rd, 1864, the property was raided by legions of federal cavalry led by U.S. General John W. Davidson. The army camped on the grounds overnight, and Davidson quartered in the house. Davidson continued on his path of destruction across Mississippi, burning and pillaging the land. Miss Martha Rankin, the lady of the house, was distraught over his stay. She complained about the loss of her favored horse and pleaded with the raiders to leave her horse alone. They were not persuaded. Many historians wonder why he did not burn down the Ford house when he left. Local historians believe it was because Andrew Jackson stayed at the house and Davidson admired Jackson highly. At the John Ford home site sits Payne's Chapel, an 1800s church. The church was built in Spring Cottage and also known as the Union School. It was moved to the Ford site in the mid-90s. The John Ford home is engulfed in history and culture, and it is because of its historical significance and value that persuades volunteers to work tirelessly on events to promote the site. The Marion County Historical Society is devoted to touching people's hearts with history. In an effort to do so, Ford's encampment is held at the John Ford home the last weekend in February. It is an 1800s living history reenactment with staged battles and duels, period sutlers, Ford house tours, and other activities to explore our rich past and history. The Marion County Historical Society continues not only in its role as caretaker of the house, but also in its purpose to preserve the house for future generations and to develop the historic site as a regional heritage tourism destination. MCHS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving the history and culture of Marion County and the region. For more info on the Marion County Historical Society, the John Ford home, or Ford's encampment, please call 601-731-3999. We invite you all out to the historic John Ford home. Come, relive history with us.